Hey everyone, today we're back with a very special episode. Today I have a special guest with me, my friend, Hugo. Hugo is a chef who has worked in a variety of restaurants, including some very high-end ones. I hope you enjoy our conversation as we take a look at what it's like to be a chef. Well, Hugo, I just wanted to thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, Hugo, so let's just get down to it. You were in university for math, actually, not culinary school.
That is correct.
And at what point did you decide that you wanted to switch from math? Well, not switch because you did finish your degree in math, but when did you know that you wanted to pursue a cooking career?
I'll be completely honest. It was a spur of the moment type deal. While I've always learned how to cook at home, I really found my true calling during first, maybe second year university, after starting a part-time job at the campus restaurant. Then I found out that I enjoyed serving food, enjoyed cooking food, enjoyed making people happy with the food I make. And so with that, I just really decided that this is what I wanted to do with my career path.
Did you take the part-time job as something just to make some money and it was convenient being at school, or was that something that you thought might lead to something more?
You were absolutely correct. Initially, I just thought it was a part-time job. Just I need to make some money to help pay for my day-to-day expenses. But what I didn't realize was that as soon as I stepped into the heated kitchen, was that this is what I wanted to do. This was the environment that I was looking for. This is what I was striving for. And so, you know what? I couldn't see myself in an office type situation. So I thought, okay, you know what? I like food. I like cooking food. Let's give this a shot. And soon enough, I loved what I do.
So what was that environment like? Because you mentioned I don't see myself doing an office job, and of course, an office job versus a kitchen are totally different things. So what was it about the kitchen?
Yes.
What was the atmosphere like? What were you doing when you started?
Initially, it was extremely hard because when I first started, I'd be in the dish pit. Even though I didn't sign up to be in the dish pit, every single rookie, every single stage, that's what we called like the interns, would start off there because we need to know that we can trust you. And so at the same time, you'd use this time at the dish pit to learn where everything is, learn how everybody moves. And soon enough, once they were able to trust you, then you could start moving into the kitchens where they would actually trust you to serve food to the guests because their name is on the line. If they don't trust you, they can't trust you to serve food.
So was your expectation walking in that you were going to be cooking right away and then you got put onto dish?
Yes, I initially thought, okay, I cook hot food at home. I can do this easily. I'd expect, like you said, but they instantly put me to the dish pit, which wasn't what I expected.
Yeah, and I can share
all.
a similar story. One of the first part-time jobs that I had was being a dishwasher at a restaurant, actually, and it was the same deal. Needed a summer job, needed some money, and I thought, okay, working at a restaurant, that should be okay. And it was basically the same thing where, no, you need to do this first before you can get to anywhere else in the restaurant. And obviously I didn't stick around long enough to transition to actually cooking the food, but it was the same experience. So I'm assuming this is kind of the same deal at every restaurant or most restaurants.
Yes, it's the same deal. For somebody who has no experience whatsoever, if you want to come into the restaurant, you start in the dish pit. Unless you have some experience somewhere else, then you start one section lower than where you would have started, just to see your skills, just to see how you react with the team. Because above the skill and all else, personality and how well you react with the current team is more important. Because the current team has already established a position there. They know how the system works. So how well you mesh with the current team is more important.
I know it's a big meme where you see on a lot of resumes like great at dealing with fast-paced changing environments, but a kitchen is really what that is, right? I mean, at any given time you could have a big table come in, or it could be empty some nights you don't expect it. So it's really, you have to be able to adapt and show you have a good attitude about it.
Yes, you definitely have to have a good attitude, because it is a meme where it's like great adapting to environments and whatnot, but because you are being thrown into a new environment and they have to trust you to be a part of the team, you actually have to earn their trust and work alongside them to actually execute something properly.
So you started Dish. How long would it take to get to the next stage? And can you kind of walk through at a high level and generally most restaurants how it works. So if it's dish and then maybe appetizers and so on and so forth, and go over the different sections.
Usually what happens is that you would start off a dish, however long it takes for them to trust you, however long it takes for them not only them to trust you, but for you to learn the position of everything, learn how the slang works, learn the system, learn where everything is. Once you have that down, then you move on to the cold section, which is appetizers, salads, the less technically skilled area, so that you get a basic idea of what to expect, what the timing is, what the dish entails. And depending on what the kitchen situation is, generally there is anywhere from, let's say, 3 to, I don't know, however many they require for that current restaurant. Normally what it entails is cold apps to hot apps to veggie, fish, desserts, meat, and then the pass, which is where the chef would be to expedite and to plate everything. Why meat and pastry is over fish is because fish is quote unquote the secondary station, while meat is the more expensive protein. So that's why it would be the second highest.
More people probably order steaks versus fish too. So it's just volume of work, I would assume, is more.
Relatively speaking, it's not only volume of work, but it's about the same. But because meat generally is the more expensive protein,
right? Okay.
The more skilled cooks in the kitchen, the more skilled chefs would be on that station instead. And because pastry is a more technically skilled station, you would send maybe the best or the second best to that station, because at the end of the meal, this is what you remember, so you would send somebody there.
So going from zero experience as you walked in, how long does it take for an average person of, reasonable talent, reasonable personality to go from dish to cooking hot food, let's say?
Anywhere from maybe hot apps, it maybe take, let's say, 2-3 years, to main course, 5-6 years. And in pastries, it could be varied. I'm not experienced enough with pastries, but it could be as even longer.
So it's a long grind of experience to get to the hot food, meats, main appetizers type of thing.
Yes. Well, it's just more expensive items on the menu as well. It's more quote unquote technically skilled to produce these items. So yes, it would require longer periods of training and trust to actually be able to get to these stations.
Now, from you walking in with no experience, and again, I had mentioned you were coming from a math degree background, would a culinary school have helped you in any way, or do you feel like the on-the-job training you got was sufficient?
I'll be brutally honest, I think the on-the-job training is sufficient, but had I known before university that I wanted to do culinary school, or I wanted to work in the kitchen, then I would have done culinary school instead of my math degree. But because I didn't know that this is what I wanted to do, I did my math degree, got my experience, and felt that, you know what, I can learn on the job and I will be caught up to where the culinary students are at through culinary school. This is my path that I've chosen.
Do you think the opportunities would have been different early in the game had you have gone through culinary school, or do you think it still would have been a struggle to find a job?
I think the opportunities would be a lot different, because when you go through culinary school, they have that sense of trust that, oh, you actually know your stuff. Work experience can come through, but it's mainly the trust between the restaurants and the culinary school that they understand you have been taught this at the culinary school. Whereas if you did my pathway and have work experience instead, then it shows that you have worked in a kitchen, you know your way around a kitchen, and you know the dynamics of a team. But whether or not you actually know the skills, that's on you to learn.
Right. I guess just to paint a broader picture, working from the campus restaurant, you also did, I guess you could call it an internship at a golf course where the clientele was a little more higher end. And I think that kind of opened a lot of doors for you afterwards, right? Because you were working not just dish there, right? You were also cooking.
Yes, I did. The campus restaurant was more focused on quantity, I would say. It still had quality food. Yeah. Golf course really exposed me to the culinary world where, okay, this is the system that is in place. There's so much I have to learn. This is the setup that needs to be done, and the proper workings of a higher end kitchen. And once I knew quality had to be maintained at the highest level, then this opened a lot more doors for me to other higher end restaurants, to regular restaurants.
Yeah, and I'd say you have a pretty interesting career path because after that internship you did, you ended up working at one of, I would say, the better higher end restaurants in Toronto for a very famous TV chef. But, we'll keep
Yes,
everything confidential. But,
yes.
so tell me about that experience. What is it meeting a TV chef and what is it like working in a kitchen? Because I think for a lot of us, we picture Hell's Kitchen, Gordon Ramsay yelling at us. Is it like that? Is it that crazy or is it more subdued?
It is similar to Hell's Kitchen, but less, maybe one or two levels below that. Because in Hell's Kitchen, what happens is every single one of them is a professional chef. In this famous restaurant, famous chef, I didn't exactly meet him. I was in one of his many restaurants. But what happens is because we are not considered chefs, we're considered cooks until we deserve that title of chef, like almost like a PhD. Until you get to that ranking, you don't get to call yourself that. So what happens is I thought I was hot. I was a hot shot after working the golf course. I went there and the chef pulled me aside and told me that you are nothing. You're nobody, and I should stop pretending that I am somebody. And at that moment, it really hit me hard because what he said wasn't harsh. Maybe at the time I thought it was harsh, but it wasn't harsh. But it was completely true. I can't learn how to run without learning how to walk first. And so from that moment on, I spent all my time just building myself back up and up, always being a student. And that's the mentality that you have to maintain in the restaurant scene, is because you're always a student. There's more than one ways to do it properly, more than one ways to do it correctly. But in that moment, you are taking the chef's vision and making sure that is done properly.
And I don't think that's specific just to your field. I mean, there are times where you may see business students or whoever else get internships for really great jobs and you feel really proud of yourself and of course really excited, but once you get there you realize, oh, the things I learned in my books, how do I apply them in real life? You know what I mean? And it's the same kind of idea. Yeah. So I think I understand. I think that's a common feeling, but it's good that you recognized early on that this is continual learning really for the rest of your life, and it's a good healthy way to approach it.
At that point, I didn't have much of a choice but to accept it. If I didn't accept it at that time, there was no way I would continue moving through the restaurant scene, because this is a vision that every single chef has. They're always continually learning, and they have to learn. The food scene's always changing.
After your experience at the high-end restaurant, I should call it a famous restaurant, you focused more on more high-end restaurants and more expensive restaurants, but more so in the city. Now, was that a conscious decision to move away from the celebrity kind of restaurants and move to more family, high-end, service-oriented restaurants, or was it a little bit different?
Maybe subconsciously I thought that, but I decided to move away from the more famous restaurants because it would cloud my eyes and thinking, oh, because I've worked in a famous restaurant, I knew everything that I needed to know. So I went back to the roots, went back to the standard, so I could not only build myself, but make sure what I learned there wasn't for nothing. And so, you know what? I learned at this famous restaurant. Can I apply this at any other restaurant and learn from them and learn from somewhere else?
And don't get me wrong, these are highly rated restaurants if you were to search them up. And the reason I ask is because you had mentioned going from dish to cooking hot food is like 6 to 7 years almost. But because you had this really great experience from the golf course and then from that celebrity restaurant, did that fast track you in a way to being able to cook meat and steaks and that stuff you really wanted to do quicker?
I would like to think so, yes, it does. In a golf course, they require all hands on deck because they're not only paying for elaborate prices for the food, I suppose, so they need all hands on deck. So this really gives me a quicker hands-on approach to it. I could get up close and personal with the person cooking the meat, cooking the food, ask them questions, even if I have to annoy them. This is for my sake. I have to learn, I have to be better so I can be help to the team.
Right. This sort of fast-tracked you because I think now you're cooking steaks by yourself, running stations by yourself. And so everything you had taken up to that point you used, and all the development and all the training that you told yourself I have to do really elevated you to where you are today.
after learning how to cook steak, there's times I was the only one in the kitchen by myself. And once you learn the kitchen by yourself, at that point you can organize yourself. You can once you can do everything by yourself, you know how to set your task and do things much more efficiently because you have that clarity to do so. You have that experience to see things at every step.
What was your experience like, or I should say, what is your experience like being in a kitchen? What should people expect? Because I kind of know what to expect from my short experience doing dish. So I'm curious what your experience is. Do you need thick skin? Should you be used to certain things, or certain language?
You should have a thick skin. You should definitely be used to a certain type of language, more like adult language, because we're called the back of house for a reason. You don't see us. The front of house, you see them. They are there to make your experience better, and not only that, they're there to make us look good, as well as we're in the back to make them look good as well. It will be hot, it will be loud, and it will be chaotic, but you should need to learn how to thrive in that environment. And most importantly, you need to learn how to not get in each other's way, because the back of house, the kitchen, is quote unquote it's a machine. So if you're in each other's way, the machine will clog up. But if you can move around each other, you can communicate each other effectively, that's what will make the food taste better, make the food go out smoother, and make your experience that much more enjoyable.
Absolutely. I don't think people realize how important each role is to play. I mean, okay, dishwashers, you may laugh at it and say, oh, what is this? But if those dishes don't get to the chefs on time, that perfect food they prepared is not going to sit on anything. And then if the person who's arranging all the dishes, you want to send everything at the table at once. Well, if half of one table is ready, half of another table is ready, that food just sits there and it could go bad. I mean, it won't be ready to serve. It could get colds.
I think one of your points was extremely valid, that when most people don't realize how important the dishwashers are, while the chefs and the cooks all get the spotlight for, oh, thank you for making such a tasty food, the dishwashers are really the legs, they're really the support system of the entire restaurant. If they don't do their job properly, you don't get your food.
To transition, one thing I wanted to talk about without getting into, your personal details is salary and work hours and kind of work conditions. So we kind of went over the work conditions about the environment that you're in and the language you may come across, but also the team camaraderie and the family element of a kitchen, which is, I think, a really important thing, that a lot of office workplaces don't have that.
I would feel that we have a higher team camaraderie in the kitchen because we have to stand next to each other. We have to work next to each other the entire day. While office work is from 9 to 5, we could be there for anywhere from 9 to 9 or even 9 till even later than that. So it's more than an 8-hour day, more than a 10-hour day.
Yeah, so that's a great segue, because going into work hours, what should somebody expect who's thinking about, oh, I really enjoy cooking, I want to take this professionally, I want to pursue this? What days are you in for?
Whenever the restaurants are open, you should have your schedule open from their hours to their days open, because if you don't get to request your days that you can't work.
I guess until later on, until you get more established.
I guess so. It becomes this because there are obviously days that people want, but those are the days that the restaurant are busy, that the restaurant is busy.
Right.
So if a rookie decides to come in here and request, I don't know, let's say Friday or Saturday off, or Friday and Saturday off, then it's not fair because we're busy that time. We need you in here for that time. What gives you the right to have that day off, make the same amount of money as the rest of us, and you get the good days off while everybody's here sweating to the bone?
We'll circle back to that in a second. But in terms of hours working, if we get back to that, so walk me through a day. So let's assume that you're no longer doing dish, you're doing maybe apps or fryers or something. What's the day like? What time do you come in? What are you doing when you get in? When do you start service and so on?
Usually you want to be at the restaurant at least an hour, 2 hours before the restaurant opens. And even that allows you to change, get ready, get your mind set for the day. Usually receive your inventory your stock, your produce in for that day as early as possible. And so let's say you have lunch service. Because you're in at 2 hours, an hour ahead of time, you are able to start prep for lunch service or use your stuff from last night for lunch service. And then there's lunch service. Yeah.
So you might be in at like 9:30,
yes, even
10.
for lunch service, if lunch, let's say, starts at 11, you are already in at 9:30, 10 o'clock, or even like 8 o'clock, just starting prep for that. After lunch service, clean up, fill everything up so that you're ready for dinner service. Once you clean up, now you realize, okay, not only what do I have to prep for dinner service, you also have to prep for the next day as well. And then you prep the entire day. You take a 30-minute break, and then you continue prepping. Then there's dinner service. Then after dinner service, you would clean up, stock everything up back to the top, and then find out what you need for tomorrow, what you're missing, what you need to order from the wholesalers, and place that order in so that you can rinse and repeat the same thing tomorrow.
So the impression I'm getting is there's always something
there is
to
always
do.
something to do.
So if this is a job that you're looking for where you just kind of relax and you're sitting down, this is the total opposite of what you're looking
It's
for.
total opposite, but also at the same time, while you are prepping, while you are cooking, you are talking to your comrade in arms. So you also are building that team relationship as well.
Right. It's sort of a give and take, I guess, because you need to spend time together to make that bond strong. And when it comes to a restaurant, if you're chopping tomatoes as I'm ordering my food, this food will take forever to come. So the work has to be done in advance.
It has to be done in advance, unless you're extremely skilled and can do it instantly. But what happens is most restaurants use sauces and soups and whatnot. Those things have been using veal stock, chicken stock, veggie stock, whatever stock it requires. It takes days to prepare in advance to achieve that level of flavor. So there are a lot of things in advance that we have done that you don't know about. The one interesting fact is that while it takes us a long period of time to prep, it only takes you, let's say, 5 minutes to consume the entire thing.
Yeah, and I think one thing you mentioned where it's your job to make them look good, their job to make us look good, where you don't realize how much goes into getting your meal, and one little thing wrong, I send a dish back. I mean, if you want to send it back, send it back. Of course, you're paying for the food, but how much even that can delay a kitchen and mess up that whole period of the service.
If a dish gets sent back, obviously we do our best to accommodate, to fix, and to make sure that your experience is as great as possible. But once you send a dish back, the entire flow of the kitchen is gone. We have to stop what we're doing and make sure that you get your food out because you've already been waiting, as well as now you're going to wait even longer because you sent a dish back. Now, Once you send the dish back, we have to do yours as well as continue what else we were doing as well.
Now, you mentioned earlier, which is another great segue, so I can tell you're good at this, is somebody new coming in and then requesting certain days off. Now, just from me hanging out with you and knowing you, Fridays, Saturdays, and even Sundays, well, of course, those are the busiest days of the restaurants. So more often than not, those are days you're going to be booked. Now, for people that work 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday nights, these are the times where they're going out or they're spending time with friends. Whereas you're getting ready for the busiest.
I'm getting ready for you to have your free time.
Yeah, and that's a great way to say it, actually. And so what I was trying to get at was, how does that affect your personal life? You don't have to go into too much details, but do you find that this career in a way puts you on a different schedule, so it makes it challenging to do certain things? Or do you find a way to balance that later on?
I have no choice but to balance it. I'm very fortunate to have the friends that I have who are able to adapt to my schedule, and as well as I'm able to adapt to their schedule. I'm very fortunate in that aspect. But yes, personal life aside, once you start work in this industry, I should say, you don't have a personal life anymore. your friends, while I am fortunate, your friends are close to non-existent. Your new friends are now the servers and the people working in the kitchen as well. You are stuck with them most of your time, and you have no choice but to like them, get to know them, and get along with them.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is I just wanted to highlight to people listening that it's not a typical 9 to 5, 8 hours, then you leave kind of thing. It's a little physically demanding because you're on your feet, of course, in a hot kitchen. And that the hours are, I mean, you may do an 8-hour shift, but it could be more depending on the prep and the cleanup. And if you have a table that stays late or someone at the bar hanging around, that can be really annoying.
Whatever hours they say you are in for, let's say, for the sake of this, let's say they say you're in at 9 to 5. You're not out at exactly 5. You might be staying there for another hour or so. So it's that hours aren't fixed for the regular folks in the restaurant.
Yeah, and I would say that you have a pretty good private life. I would say that you have a pretty good social life and you do a great job at keeping relationships, but it's just that it can be challenging. I mean, a lot of careers that are rewarding but are challenging, you have to put in a lot of time and effort to get good at them, and they're demanding. You know, if you're an accountant or an investment banker, or even like I'm trying to give examples of white collar jobs, but chefs are a similar thing. I don't think a lot of people think about that because you're on a different hourly schedule than everybody else.
We are on a different hourly schedule because we're here to make your relaxation time as great as possible. But when we get to relax, then somebody else has to. Yeah,
I mean, we're in the office,
you guys are
right?
in the office, and then somebody else has to be open for us to relax. So it's a little hard to find a good social life.
Going back to the salary aspect of cooking, now you can be as specific as you want, but what should somebody expect walking in as a starting chef? Because obviously the highs are very high, and I'm not talking about being a celebrity chef or opening your own restaurant. When you reach the point of executive chef or head chef or even sous chef, the salaries are very competitive, and I would say pretty good.
Once you get to that position, the salaries are really good. But the responsibilities are a lot higher as well, because you also have to manage not only your business aspect of the restaurant, but you also have to manage the human aspect of the restaurant. So there's a lot of variables that come into play once you get to that position.
So if I could draw a parallel for people listening, a sous chef is the person that's right underneath the head chef. You could almost akin them to a manager because they're really doing some scheduling. I think they help with the ordering, if that's correct.
The sous chef does everything that the head chef does. The head chef just simply does it better.
And you could think of the head chef as the CEO. He's the top dog or she's the top dog. And then the owner is obviously the owner of the company or the owner of the restaurant. And then everybody else is, you could be on meat, so you might be an analyst at a company. I'm trying to draw the examples. But
that's a good example.
But somebody walking in as a new associate, a new chef, what can they expect salary-wise? Are they going to be hourly? Are they going to be salary? What should we expect?
It's very rare that you'd find salary-based entry-level cooks, entry-level chefs. It's very rare that you find salary-based because of the variable hours that the restaurant has, and we are completely dependent on the amount of customers that you have. So it would be an hourly-based quote-unquote salary. Now, depending on the size and the profitability of the restaurant, you would be looking at an entry-level would be minimum wage. There's simply no arguing it. We don't know you, we don't trust you, you have no experience. This is the best we can actually offer you with what you have shown us. Then starting your way up, then you'd make more money.
You make more money as time progresses. But the higher you go, that's when the salary positions come in, the benefits come in. Obviously more experience, but
yes.
But that's when that, how you were saying when you're 6-7 years in the game, that's when that type of money and those opportunities come.
But the higher you are in the game, the more sacrifice that you have to do, because you have to cover everything. You have more experience, so let's say a younger person in the cold section, the salad, say, oh, I'm sick. We know they're not sick, but they're not showing up to work. Now I have to give up my weekend, I have to give up my free time just to cover their shift, as well as do my own work. So there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with the higher position.
Right. I think though any role, I mean, if someone doesn't come to work and you have to do a report,
Yes,
like I just keep
yes.
trying to bring this back to, business jobs or office jobs. There's other people work there that are listening. You may have to pick up their slack, but it's a different game when it's physical labor in a hot kitchen.
It definitely is
So
a different game.
now you can go to culinary school. Are there any other certifications or things people can get, and are they useful? Does it bring you more salary in the long
There is
run?
the one thing here in Canada that we can get. It's called the Red Seal. Now, for the Red Seal, it's for pretty much any trade, but it's pretty much a certification of quality. Once you get a Red Seal, even if you are a chef, it's like you have a PhD. It's like you have a PhD attached to your degree.
Oh wow! And how does one get a red seal? Is that something you're thinking about pursuing
It
at
is
some
definitely
point?
something I am pursuing. You either have to do, I believe, 8,000 hours as a professional chef,
Okay.
or in the culinary city, I forgot. You either have to do like 5,000 under a quote unquote master or a mentor that's actually willing to teach you, or you do culinary school and you do 3,000 hours under a Red Seal chef or something like that.
So 8,000 hours. If you do 40 a week, you're looking at about 4 years, and then you could potentially apply for the red seal and see how
Yes,
it goes.
you have to do a written test, and
Okay.
once you after, like, let's say 4 years, then you can pretty much apply for the Red Seal. But that's assuming that you're getting 40 hours a week every single year. Yeah,
Consistently.
every single
Right.
year. So, and you also have to have proof of that. So there's a lot of
Right.
steps to it.
Okay. Yeah. Right. So I think we covered a lot, sort of what it's like to break into the industry as an outsider, or somebody just interested in it, to how you climb up the ranks, what you had to do to get to where you are in a successful position today, and sort of what the realities are starting out. Because I think cooking is something that gets so glamorized. There's probably 1,000 cooking shows on TV, and quite frankly, there are a lot of talents, but being a home cook and being a professional chef are very
The one
different
thing
for a lot of the reasons, that
the
you
biggest
illustrated.
thing about a home cook and a cook in the restaurant industry is that the cooks in the restaurant industry have been trained to execute this whatever dishes that they were trained to do perfectly every single time. But a home cook, while whatever they're making looks good, they can only replicate that one time, or even, let's say, 2-3 times for the sake of it. But they can only do that a certain amount of times
For a certain quantity of people in a
in a
certain
long
time
period
frame.
of time frame, where we are trained
Right.
to do this, to repeat what we're doing over and over again and make sure the exact same quality in a short period of time.
Right, because I mean, if one appetizer comes 10 minutes late, there's your 5-star review to a
Yes.
4-star, right? And then that can affect
Yes.
your business. So I guess to end this off, what is some advice you would give to somebody that wants to break into the industry? Just general advice, maybe the best advice somebody's given you.
Well, first thing is, if you're looking to make money here in the restaurant industry, this is not the industry for you. You actually have to like
Okay.
food to actually survive in this industry. Secondly, my most helpful advice to anybody wanting to break into this industry is probably the harshest advice I've ever been given, and which is, you're a nobody. You are a nobody until you learn how to crawl, you learn how to walk, and then you learn how to run. So if you think you've watched cooking shows, or you think you've done very nice cooking projects and want to try the restaurant scene, you have to learn how to crawl before you can learn how to walk, before you can learn how to run it.
Yeah, I think there's probably nicer ways to say that, but it is good advice that you can apply to pretty
Yes.
much anything in your life or any career. So I guess because of this conversation we had, we've talked a lot about the hardships, and you just said, "Oh, if you're trying to make a lot of money, maybe this isn't for you." So, what is it about it, man? Why do you love it? Why do you keep coming back for more? And why do you want to do this for the rest of your life?
Pain. No, I just enjoy food. I love cooking food for my friends, my family, the faces that they get, the expressions that they have, the emotions that are being presented to me once they eat my food. I just love it. The restaurant scene, once you finish a service, once you finish cooking with your team, you get an adrenaline high like no other, because you have done something incredible with your team. And that's something I really enjoy every single time that I do it.
I think that's a beautiful thing, man. And just to begin to wrap this up, I want to say I think it takes a lot of courage to do what you did. Being in a major in math, I mean, that's a pretty hard major in itself, and it could open a lot of opportunities to different jobs that maybe financially would be more rewarding, emotionally or how you'd feel about it. Those are different topics, but
Yeah.
to take a leap like that and to go into something that you weren't even sure, this was not on a whim, but you tried it, you enjoyed it, and thought, okay, I think this is for me. And you started from the bottom and worked your way up, and to get to the position you are today, I think that's really incredible, man. So I just want to commend you for that.
Thank you very much.
And I also wanted to say that I will take my wife on her birthday to a restaurant you were working at, and we didn't actually know that you were working that night. I thought you were off. And we had a fantastic meal, and I found out after the fact that you made it, and I thought that was a pretty cool experience.
We don't do it for the recognition. As long as you're happy, then I'm over the moon for it.
Yeah, and so I guess it goes back to why you love it, man. But I thought that was a really cool experience. So I just wanted to thank you again for joining us on this first episode of Career Day. I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of it, and thank you for your time. And if you want to do a shameless plug, because you also have a podcast that you are working on.
Thank you for having me. I'm also doing a food podcast called The Sweet Life of Snack and Foodie. A little bit of comedic content here, a little bit of food talk here and there. It's good family fun for everybody. So hopefully you come have a listen, enjoy yourself. Hopefully you learn a little bit more about food. Thank you for having me.
So Sweet Life of Snack and Foodie, and that's on YouTube.
YouTube
and people
Spotify.
Can check it out. YouTube and Spotify. Okay, man. Well, thank you for having me, and everybody check that out.